Welcome to our YouTube channel. So in this video, we will share with you the pitfalls that come along with Airbnbs that no one is telling you today. So in today's video, I'll share with you 3 main issues and how a different way of investing in real estate can be a better option for you. All right, so before we get started, let me share with you my experience. So back in 2009, when just making $39,000 a year in New York, I rented out a basement apartment and sublet it out legally to international students who needed short-term housing accommodations, similar to Airbnb. In other words, I was a homestay host. I was paying about $1,000 per month, more or less, to cover the rent, the cable, the internet, utilities every month. And I rented out each of the 3 bedrooms for $700 a month. I was generating good cash flow off a property I didn't own. And then I ended up buying a duplex so I can host even more international students. I was looking to scale. Now, this may sound good to you, and I'm not just gonna tell you a lie. It was good, especially the cash flow. But I wanna share some of the pitfalls from this experience. This experience wasn't Airbnb per se, for Airbnb wasn't around back then when I started subletting, but it's very similar, being that both are short-term housing accommodations. And if you're looking to see if I actually had actual Airbnb experience, I also managed a 1-bedroom apartment in Atlanta, smack dab in the center of Buckhead, a neighborhood of Atlanta, overlooking Lenny's Mall. It was beautiful. Now, let me just get into the meat of the matter, the pitfalls most Airbnb hosts don't tell you. Number 1, legalities. With the lease option, there was a clause that stated that I could not sublease the unit out. So I had to be upfront and honest with the landlord prior to signing the lease for her to remove that clause. I shared with her that she will see many different faces from different places, but I will be her main guy, since I'm the guy hosting the international students and this is my business. So I'll be the sole person responsible for the rent and so forth. And that you will never receive the rent past 1st of every month. In fact, I would pay her on the 28th and 27th of the prior month. And that all repairs will be done by me. And they won't be at home much because they're international students. They want to tour New York City, go to English school. So there won't be any wear and tear on the property either. Now, if you attempt to do a rental arbitrage, then it's vital for you to have all the legalities in place. This means you may be able to make sure that you're adhering to all the terms of the lease, in that whatever you don't like in the lease, like not being able to sublet, you gotta make sure you have the conversation with the owner to get it out. And you also must adhere to zoning laws, the local municipalities, because they do require licensing and inspections, which can relate to fees and repairs that the owner may not pay for, or they may not even allow it. So you don't want to sneak around it and do things you shouldn't be doing, for it can all get you into some trouble, right? With my Buckhead property, we Airbnb'd it and we actually got caught. But luckily, we got a slap on the wrist, right? Being that our lease was ending in a month. And plus, when we rented it out to Airbnb guests, we had to constantly look into what should be the best rent to pay and how much should we advertise it for based upon what's going on seasonally or what's going on in the area, like if it's a Super Bowl. And we had to constantly look at the price for the Airbnb, increase and decrease and so forth. We were in a drought. So last, I had a friend who did an arbitrage in Fort Lauderdale, and he had to get the property licensed and inspected. And after doing so, doing the repairs, furnishing the unit, utilities, and paying first month, last month, and a 1-month security deposit, he spent over $40,000 before he even got his first guest. So before you even sign on the dotted line on the lease, just look into all the legalities as well as the costs involved, and just be upfront and honest if you're doing an arbitrage also with the local municipality, so that way you be on the up and up. All right, the second pitfall is this: systems. Your calendar, your systems must be on point. In regard to your calendar, don't expect your Airbnb to be running out 30 days a month. That'd be ridiculous. For there may be dry spells, and that's why you want to make sure you have reserves as well. And in regard to systems, you need to have a system for inventory FAQs, frequently asked questions, timely correspondence with your guests, as well as proper screening for guests. For example, you can't get mad if your guests do a party, but you didn't onboard the guests in the first place that there shouldn't be any parties. Also, even if you did onboard them, you still can't get mad if they throw a party, but you allow people who had in-state IDs to stay at your guests, because this is a high percentage chance that they'll throw a party. Or you can't even get mad, even if you had in-state ID and then they threw a party, but then the person who showed up to your ring, you know, the doorbell in front of your door, and you look at them and it's not the person whose ID matches, right? Because they just might have had one person sign up for the Airbnb, but someone else came in there to the party. So if you don't have these systems documented, then you cannot expect a consistent result or a predictable result. And you cannot expect to delegate the management of your Airbnb, if you're looking to scale, to a team member you hire. Number 3, it's a part-time job. With short-term rentals and Airbnbs, you will have turnover, meaning people moving in and moving out, changing the sheets, laundry, all that stuff. So if a couple stayed, let's say for a 3-day weekend, check out Sunday at 11 a.m., you have another booking that's moving in that same day. Sounds great, right? But just think about the logistics here. So that means you will have to coordinate, unless you have an assistant to do this, the checkout time of the first guest, transfer the keys if there's keys involved, because you might be able to do this stuff remotely. But you still have to communicate with the cleaning company to get in there, clean up, restock the supplies, the inventory, and then you have to coordinate the check-in with the next guest. And the cleaner's taking longer. Let's say the first guest trashed the place because they threw a party. Then you need to speak with the guest that's checking at 3 to see if you can come in a little bit later. So it is a job. It's starting out. You may do the cleaning, which I don't recommend. You may order and stack the supplies, track the supplies, the inventory, things like that. And you may also facilitate the communication and manage the bookings, right? You may be inspecting the units, all while having a full-time job, wife and kids. As soon as I realized this, and even though the cash flow for my short-term rentals was good, but maybe it was best for me to acquire multi-unit properties with long-term tenants, having a year lease plus. So that way I can reduce the management that it took with short-term rentals. However, it was a lot of work. And being that the students or the guests for my short-term accommodations were staying with me temporarily, some 3 weeks, some 3 months, some even 3 days, I had constant turnover. Now, if your goal is to quit your day job through real estate investing, ask yourself if you want to be a part of a part-time job. Sure, buying properties does require work for long-term properties, but not as much work in regard to short-term accommodations like Airbnb. All right, there you have it. So all you have to do is just focus on the pitfalls and also which strategy you want to implement. Now, how I recommend, if you're that person who wants to quit your day job with passive income, sure, Airbnbs, you can do arbitrage, and sure, you can maximize the amount of rent you receive per day. It could definitely be profitable, but just think about your time. As the old saying goes, right? You always have 2 resources, time and money, and which one's more valuable to you. So back in my day, when I was grinding it out, trying to grow my portfolio and figure out what's the best strategy for me to implement, again, I tried the short-term accommodation model. It was profitable, and I didn't have to put a huge down payment. As I shared, I was subleasing up an apartment, that's arbitrage, but the downside was the time commitment. And so I realized, okay, maybe I should think of creative ways for me to actually acquire properties, multi-unit properties, so I can meet my goal of financial freedom much faster without bringing on another full part-time job or something of that sort. All right, guys, so if you're interested in learning more about how you can get started in multi-unit investing, just check the link below in the description. Take care. Peace.